I stood there, holding the mic I never got to use. 80 people turned to stare at me, not because I said anything, but because I hadn't. The music had cut, the lights dimmed, and Melissa had just told them, in her perfectly rehearsed tone, that she was filing for divorce. "This isn't some impulsive decision," she'd said, voice echoing across the rooftop dining room I'd rented months in advance. "Gregory and I have grown in different directions. I've outgrown the life we built together." Then she smiled. That kind of smile lawyers use in court. Cold, confident, calculated. I set the mic down and walked out. No scene, no words. Just straight through the crowd, past friends who wouldn't meet my eyes, and coworkers of hers who suddenly found the wallpaper fascinating. When the valet handed me my car key, he didn't say a word either. Smart kid. I drove home in silence. The living room still smelled like the jasmine candles Melissa liked. Her coat was on the hook, half a bottle of wine on the counter. The table was still set for two. Apparently, she'd planned her exit more carefully than I realized. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't cry, didn't scream. I just sat there replaying the moment over and over again, trying to figure out why. What had I missed? What hadn't I seen? We hadn't been perfect, sure. Her work hours were insane, and mine weren't much better. But I thought we were functional, building something, quietly dependable. Turns out, I was just a placeholder for the version of herself she no longer needed. 3 days passed. No call, no explanation. Just a brief text the morning after. "Let's handle this like adults. I'll have my lawyer contact you next week." I was still trying to figure out what to say when my phone rang. Unknown number. Local. "Mr. Parker?" The voice on the other end was deep, clipped. "This is Robert Chambers, managing partner at Harrison Mayfield, Melissa's firm. I was hoping we could meet. It's regarding Melissa." I paused. "Regarding the divorce?" "No," he said. "Regarding the files." "Files?" He gave me the address of a private conference room downtown and asked me to come immediately. There was something in his tone, professional urgency, masking quiet panic. I showed up 10 minutes early. Robert Chambers was already there, suit perfect, eyes shadowed like he hadn't slept in a week. With him were two others, a woman in IT and a man I recognized from Legal Press Articles Ethics Council. "We have a situation," Robert said, gesturing for me to sit. "We're missing data. Sensitive data. Confidential client, file-shy profile accounts. Files that only Melissa had regular access to." My stomach tightened. He continued, 3 nights ago, someone accessed the secure document system after hours, removed files using unauthorized external drives. The security footage is blurry, but..." He clicked play. There she was. Melissa, in a black blazer and heels, glancing over her shoulder as she slid a flash drive into the port. Robert turned back to me. "We confronted her. She denied it, said it was a personal backup, but the system logs don't lie. What's worse, her recent browser history suggests she's been communicating with Bridgewater Sloan." Bridgewater Sloan, the firm's biggest rival. "She's planning to leave," he said. "Possibly taking clients with her. But here's where it gets interesting." He slid a paper across the table. "This is your name. You're listed here in our IT contractor database." I looked at the form. My old contract. "You were hired 2 years ago to upgrade our internal security system. Through the infrastructure team, not legal Melissa wouldn't have known." I nodded slowly. "Gregory," he said carefully, "your access credentials are still active. The backup system you built is still online. And from what our tech lead says, it's still recording." That's when it hit me. She didn't just blindside me in public. She thought she deleted the evidence. But she had no idea who had designed the system she was trying to erase. "My system." Robert leaned in. "Can you help us retrieve the files? Discreetly, of course. We're not pressing charges, not yet. But we need proof. And frankly, we trust you more than we trust our own partner right now." I didn't respond right away. I just looked at the footage again. Melissa so sure, so precise, walking into the firm like she owned every inch of it. What she didn't realize was this. She hadn't just betrayed her marriage. She'd betrayed her profession. And now, she was about to learn what happens when the man behind the firewall stops protecting her. I left that conference room with a copy of the footage, a printed system access log, and a silence so heavy it followed me all the way to my car. She thought she'd wiped her tracks. She thought no one would look twice. And she definitely thought I was out of the picture. But here's the thing about building digital security. It's not about stopping people from making mistakes. It's about logging every single one. I'd designed the backup architecture for Harrison Mayfield 2 years ago. Internal redundancies, hourly versioning, and an off-site data mirror tucked so deep in the code even most of their IT team forgot it existed. Melissa had deleted the local logs. She hadn't touched the backups. And her mistake was assuming I'd walked away from the firm when the contract ended. That same night, I plugged in my old drive, authenticated my credentials, and got full access on the first try. She hadn't even changed the default admin key. Within 20 minutes, I had her entire activity trail mapped. Time-stamped file deletions, external storage port activations, access to client folders marked confidential, internal use only. The metadata didn't just show when she copied them. It showed which files, who they belonged to, and how she'd bundled them together into folders with names like Migration Candidates and BD, SW, Pitch, V2. Migration. Business Development. Sloan Whitaker. She wasn't just backing up her work. She was rebuilding her client book file by stolen file for her new firm. There were also messages, drafted in private Word docs, not sent through email. One of them read, "Finalize exit pitch. Focus on value prop for high net worth clients. Keep tone neutral but stronger than Chambers' last Q2 numbers. Leverage trust." She was planning to pitch clients with internal performance data. And then I found the final nail. A scanned folder labeled Exec Summary Sloan M that included excerpts from internal billing reports and proprietary analysis reports Melissa had attached to emails with the subject. Initial package, review confidential. They were meant for her new firm. And now, I had them. I sat back in my chair, listening to the quiet hum of my system fan. It was late. My inbox was full. My marriage was dead. But for the first time in days, I didn't feel powerless. I felt precise. I started packaging the evidence. Not all at once. No emotion. Just like I used to build firewall response flows. Step by step, control by control. I encrypted everything and uploaded it to a secure vault. Then I created a read-only bundle for Robert Chambers, complete with internal timestamps, folder mapping, an activity heat map showing file access over the past 90 days. I added one final note. Melissa has been logging in through a VPN tied to a private IP from Capitol Hill, likely her sister's address. Suggest checking mobile device registry. She's accessed the drive from a tablet, not on the firm's approved list. Then I clicked send. Not 5 minutes passed before my phone lit up. Robert Chambers. "Gregory," he said, voice low and tight. "This is more than we thought. You just saved us from a massive liability breach." I said nothing. "There's going to be an emergency partner meeting in the morning. We'd like you to attend as an outside advisor." I paused. "Does Melissa know?" "No," he said, "but she will." I hung up and sat in the dark for a long time, staring at the screen, at her trail of decisions, at the arrogance in every file name. She could have ended the marriage quietly. She could have said the truth. She could have left without turning me into collateral damage. But instead, she wanted the spotlight. Now she was about to get it. Only this time, I'd be holding the mic. The boardroom was quieter than I'd expected. 12 people sat around the long walnut table, 8 senior partners, 2 members of the internal compliance team, the head of IT, and Robert Chambers at the head. Melissa wasn't there yet. A legal pad and glass of water sat at every seat. Mine was marked consultant. It still felt strange. Not because I didn't belong, but because 2 weeks ago, I'd been the guy standing in the shadows quietly patching security holes while my wife smiled across dinner tables and called herself the breadwinner. Now, I was the one walking them through the breach she tried to bury. Robert stood first. "Everyone, This is Gregory Parker. He was the original architect of our off-site security and redundancy system, contracted through our infrastructure vendor in 2021. He paused, scanning the room. He's also the estranged husband of Melissa Parker. A few heads turned, raised brows, not surprised curious. I nodded once. Then I plugged in the drive. Everything I'm about to show you, I said, was recovered from your mirrored off-site server. It's still live, still recording, and as of this week still syncing. I pulled up the TimeLinea visual tracker showing Melissa's logins and file movements. You'll notice an anomaly beginning 6 weeks ago. Specific folders accessed late at night, outside her normal schedule. Files copied, deleted, but not overwritten in the mirror environment. I clicked open the first set. Client strategy memos, internal financial projections, retainer billing breakdowns. Silence stretched. Then I pulled up the email drafts. Her pitch letters, exit plans, key targets labeled with initials matching several of the firm's wealthiest clients. And finally, her VPN connection logs. IP addresses matching a Capitol Hill townhouse owned by Melissa's sister. Melissa was building a transition package, I said. She planned to walk out with these files and leverage them to secure a partner offer from your main competitor. No one spoke for a moment. Then, one of the older partners, the one I recognized from awards and press photos, spoke. Does she know you have this? No, Robert said. Not yet. Another partner cleared his throat. Does she know you're here? Before anyone could answer, the door opened. Melissa walked in. Hair perfect, jacket crisp, no makeup out of place. And then she saw me. Her expression barely changed, but I saw the shift, that half-second flicker of disbelief that she covered with a faint, rehearsed smile. Gregory, she said coolly, walking to the empty chair 2 seats away. Didn't expect to see you here. I could say the same, I replied. Robert gestured for her to sit. Melissa, thank you for coming. We've reviewed some information regarding recent access irregularities on the firm's secured drive system. Her eyes flicked to the screen. I watched it happen, realization catching up to her brain, like a fuse burning toward the detonation point. This is absurd, she said, already bristling. I was organizing my case files for transition. Everything I accessed was mine. No, I said, voice calm. It was the firm's and the client's, and the timing, method, and external connections suggest premeditated data exfiltration. She turned sharply. Excuse me? Robert interjected. Melissa Gregory recovered full logs from our mirror server, including access timestamps, file extractions, and your usage of unauthorized hardware. We also have VPN traffic linked to an address off-site. She froze. Then, a flicker of rage. You went into my files? She hissed. I didn't blink. I protected those files before you even knew they existed. You just didn't realize the system recorded everything. She stood. This is a setup, she snapped. He's doing this because I filed for divorce. And you sabotaged your own career doing it? Robert said coldly. You put this firm at massive legal risk. Our ethics committee will be reviewing your conduct. Your client list has been quarantined pending investigation. Pending? She laughed bitterly. This is a witch hunt. You're taking his side. He's not even a lawyer. No, I said. But I know the law. And I have proof. She stared at me, eyes narrowing, jaw clenched. For the first time in 10 years, she looked genuinely unsure of herself. You're going to regret this, she said through her teeth. I stood and gathered my folder. No, Melissa, I said quietly. I already did. This is just cleanup. Melissa didn't come home that night. Not that I expected her to. Her silence wasn't retreat, it was calculation. I knew that look in her eyes back in the boardroom. She was already rewriting the narrative, framing herself as the victim, lining up damage control. By morning, the firm had already issued a formal statement to its partners and legal team. Melissa Parker was under internal investigation. All her active case files had been reassigned. Her access to client documents was revoked. Her office, sealed. That afternoon, Robert Chambers called again. She lawyered up, he said, voice flat. Says she'll cooperate but insists this was all a misunderstanding. Claims she was backing up files for personal review. I didn't respond. She also claims you broke into her accounts, that the evidence is invalid because of conflict of interest. That made me chuckle. She forgot she signed off on my access 2 years ago, I said. There's an executed security addendum in your archives. She initialed it on page 3. I already sent it to legal, Robert replied. We're covered. He paused, then added, Gregory, what she did it goes beyond firm misconduct. There's a chance we'll have to escalate this to the state bar. I nodded. Do what you have to do. I hung up. 2 hours later, Melissa called. I let it ring once, twice, then picked up. She didn't say hello, just went straight for it. You blindsided me. I didn't respond. You humiliated me at my own firm. That's interesting, I said. Because I seem to recall you doing something similar at our anniversary party. That was personal. This is professional. You crossed a line, Gregory. No, you did. I just turned on the lights. Silence stretched across the line. Then she spoke again, lower this time. I can fix this, she said. If you retract the report, we can clean this up internally. I'll resign quietly. No bar review, no permanent record. I almost laughed. You don't get to negotiate after the damage is done. I didn't steal anything, she snapped. I was taking what I built my clients, my work, my legacy. You used privileged information that didn't belong to you. You copied confidential data, attempted to conceal your tracks, and coordinated with a competitor to sabotage your own firm. That's not legacy. That's betrayal. She went quiet again. Then, softly, I just didn't want to waste another decade stuck under Robert. I deserved more. You deserved honesty. You chose leverage. She didn't deny it. We could have had something clean, Melissa, I said. You could have ended the marriage with dignity, but you wanted a spectacle. You wanted power. So now, you get consequence. She sighed. I guess this is war then. No, I said. War takes 2 people trying to win. I ended the call. By nightfall, news had already begun to circulate in the local legal community. Whispers in legal Slack groups. Screenshots. A quiet scandal bubbling beneath the surface. Melissa had always been ambitious. But now, her ambition had a timestamp. A paper trail. And a witness. She wanted control. She just lost everything she tried to control. And I hadn't raised my voice once. 3 days after that call, Melissa's name was removed from the firm's partner shortlist. Her profile vanished from their website overnight. No statement, no announcement, just gone like she'd never been there. But I wasn't celebrating. Not yet. Because I knew Melissa. And Melissa never left without trying to flip the board on her way out. That Friday, I received a letter. Hand-delivered. Legal stationery. Her attorney's letterhead. The contents? A cease and desist. Claiming that I had violated marital privacy, improperly accessed private digital property, and my personal favorite manipulated firm systems to falsely implicate a partner in corporate misconduct. I took it to Robert. He read it once and tossed it on the table. Desperate play, he said. They know they don't have a case. I figured, I said, but I want to respond formally. He raised a brow. So that afternoon, I sent Melissa's lawyer a single-page reply, civil, composed, and airtight. I included a copy of the 2021 security contract between myself and Harrison Mayfield, a signed authorization granting me persistent, systems-level access, metadata logs proving the data trail originated from Melissa's user credentials, footage timestamped from 3 separate security cameras, and an affidavit from the firm's current IT director confirming the chain of custody. At the bottom, I added a final line. My client has no interest in prolonged litigation, only truth. Should your client continue to assert false claims, we will be prepared to file a countersuit for defamation and obstruction of an internal corporate investigation. They went quiet for about 36 hours. Then Robert called again. She's backed off, he said. Her lawyer just notified us she'll resign officially by end of day, no severance, no transition clause, She's walking away from everything. I exhaled. Not relief, just release. But there was still one loose end. Bridgewater Sloan. Melissa's future firm. The place she'd been grooming herself to jump to. They'd been playing dumb in all this, pretending they had no idea she was bringing confidential materials over. But now that her resignation was official, the ethics team at HM had forwarded a file of concern to the state and included Sloan's internal legal team in the disclosure chain. That afternoon, I received a voicemail from an unknown number. It was from Sloan's managing partner. Polite, corporate, very careful. Mr. Parker, we've been made aware of certain materials attributed to your wife Min's. Melissa Parker Rand wished to confirm that no such files were ever received or reviewed on our end. We are terminating all discussions regarding future employment with Ms. Parker effective immediately. We thank you for protecting the integrity of the legal profession. Translation: they weren't going to touch her with a 10-foot pole. And just like that, the door she'd sacrificed everything to open slammed shut. That night, I got a text from her. No threats, no legalese. Just, "You destroyed me." I stared at the screen for a long time, then typed my reply. "No, Melissa, I just showed them who you really were." 2 weeks later, I received a certified letter from the Washington State Bar Association. Not for me, for Melissa. They were notifying her of a formal ethics investigation. Misuse of client data. Attempted breach of fiduciary duty. Intent to solicit active accounts for personal gain. Robert Chambers had filed the complaint himself. He sent me a copy not out of spite, but closure. She made her choice, he said. Now she gets the weight of it. I nodded. And the clients? We've contacted all of them, explained the situation with full transparency. Most were sympathetic, some were furious, but no one's leaving. In other words, her master plan, her great leap, forward ended with burned bridges, empty folders, and a bar review panel with her name on top. Still, I wasn't gloating. I wasn't angry anymore either. I was calm. For the first time in months, maybe even years, I wasn't living in the shadow of someone else's ambition. I was just living. That weekend, I cleared out the guest room. Melissa hadn't stayed in the house since the fallout, but her things were still there: suitcases, designer bags, a dozen framed certificates and awards she couldn't bring herself to pack. I put everything in boxes, labeled them neatly, called a courier service, and sent it all to her sister's place in Capitol Hill. No note, no message. Just silence, the kind that speaks loudest. Later that evening, I sat on the back deck with a drink in hand, watching the sky turn gold over Lake Union. My phone buzzed. It was a message from one of the firm's junior partners, a woman named Claire I'd met briefly during the boardroom fallout. "Hey, I heard what you did. Bold move, honest, rare. If you ever want to grab coffee not for work, just because." I smiled, replied simply, "Sometime soon." I didn't need revenge anymore. Didn't need validation. I'd already won the quiet way. By holding the line. By telling the truth. And by making sure the person who tried to tear everything down ended up exactly where she belonged. Alone. Outplayed. And out of options. 3 months passed. The investigation closed quietly. No dramatic courtroom drama. No public spectacle. Just a single understated update in the State Bar's disciplinary records. Melissa Parker, license suspended, pending review. No headlines, no statement. But in our circles, that line said everything. Her career in years of late nights, power plays, and professional climb reduced to an asterisk on a PDF file. She'd moved out of Seattle shortly after. Word was she relocated to Portland, trying to start fresh. But even there, reputation traveled faster than resumes. No firm wanted to touch a lawyer with a cloud like hers hanging overhead. I didn't hear from her again. Not a text, not a call. Just silence. It suited me fine. Back home, the house felt different, lighter. I repainted the walls, tore out the shelves she insisted on. Donated the espresso machine she never let me touch. I even adopted a rescue dog, a shaggy, sleepy mutt named Oscar, who snored like a freight train and hated drama almost as much as I did. Work picked up too. Robert referred me to a half-dozen other firms needing real cybersecurity, not just glossy compliance decks. Turns out, integrity sells, especially when it comes with proof. One morning, I stopped by Harrison Mayfield to install an endpoint encryption patch. As I passed the glass hallway leading to the executive suites, Claire, the junior partner who'd messaged me months, backflagged me down. "Still quiet on the revenge front?" she asked with a smirk. "Quiet is good," I said. She nodded. "Drinks this week?" I smiled. "Thursday?" It wasn't a date. Not exactly. But it wasn't nothing either. And that was the thing. I didn't need a dramatic ending. No thunderclap. No fireworks. Just peace. Melissa had tried to destroy two things: my name and my self-respect. She didn't just lose both plans. She lost the very things she thought she could manipulate: forever trust, legacy, and the illusion of control. I didn't ruin her. She did that all by herself. All I did was document it properly. What did you think of this story? If you were in Gregory's shoes, how would you have handled it? Let me know where you're watching from in the comments. And if you support Gregory, vote 2. If you're not a fan, vote 7. Don't forget to subscribe to Revenge with Max so you never miss a powerful new karma story every single day.